All right, so next we'll begin our deep dive into the syntax of SQL. We'll start by making queries. So when we say queries, that refers to things like searching for information, selecting pieces of our database, selecting all the top-rated movies from 2019, or selecting the most prolific user who has left the most reviews, and also things like inserting and updating and deleting particular rows into a table. So inserting a new movie, updating a rating for a movie, deleting all movies from this year, deleting all movies with an average score of less than 5 out of 10. So what we're going to focus on first is technically a subset of SQL. It's called SQL DML, which is data manipulation language. There's also SQL DDL, which is data definition language. And we will learn that as well. That sounds quite intimidating, but think of it this way. There's 2 different steps to working with a database. To get your data in a Postgres database, we first need to define the pattern of our data, the schema. We need to create the empty tables that say each movie has an ID, a title, a release year, a director, and a rating. Rating like R, PG-13, PG, that sort of thing, MPAA rating. So that is defining the structure of our data, and that's something we do through SQL. And then after that, we can do DML stuff, data manipulation, where we can insert into that table. We can delete from it. We can search within it. We can retrieve rows that meet specific criteria. And this is actually where we're going to start. And the reason for that is that it's easier, and most of what you'll be doing, most of the time at least in a Flask app, is creating new rows, deleting rows, searching for things, updating things, whereas the other subset of SQL, the data definition language stuff, creating tables and defining your schema, is something you usually do once per application. So we will get to that after this, so just a couple videos most likely, but we're starting here. And in order for this to work, what I'm going to do is give you a file. It's already attached to this lecture. You can find it on the handout. It's a downloadable file called library.sql. And if we take a look at it, just through the command line, it includes a lot of starter information for us. It creates a database, it creates a table, and it adds some basic books is what we're working with here. And then it creates a table called employees, but it adds in a bunch of books for us. So it's a starter file. And we'll begin by running this file that we can then work with. So we'll create a database, we'll add a table, we'll add some rows, and we won't have to actually write that code ourselves. I'm giving it to you. So then we can focus on the DML stuff, data manipulation. We'll have some content to work with. We're going to focus on the basic CRUD operations in SQL. CRUD is a pretty common acronym in web development and programming in general. It stands for create, read, update, and delete. 4 standard operations for any entity in a database. We want to be able to create a new movie. How do we insert a movie into our database? Read, you could also think of as searching or finding, retrieving. So how do we find something from the database? Find the most recent movie. Find all movies released in 2019. Find the lowest rated movie. Find movies that have a rating of PG-13. Updating, the U would be updating a rating for a movie, updating the title if something was messed up. Deleting would be to delete a movie from our table, delete the most recent movie, delete all movies below some threshold of review scores, or delete all movies directed by Roman Polanski, for example. So we have these different operations: create, read, update, and delete. Very standard term you'll hear a lot is CRUD. And then here is the equivalent operation, the actual SQL command. So to create a new movie, the command in SQL is not create, it's insert into. To read a movie or multiple movies, in SQL, we use select. We use update and delete, which both happen to match CRUD, but select and insert are slightly different. So we're going to go step by step through each of these operations, and within each operation we'll see some variants, and especially with selecting, there are tons of ways of selecting data, retrieving information. It's pretty rare that you would just want to select every movie in your database. If we have thousands, or if we think of IMDb I think there's at least hundreds of thousands of movies, if not over 1 million. Who knows? Actually, that's probably a stretch. I don't know if there's been 1 million movies made. Who knows? There's a lot of them, though. And we're not viewing all of them at once on IMDb. Usually they are retrieved based off of their rating, country, the director. If you're on an actor's page, you'll see the movies that actor has been in. So there's a SQL query that's been run to select all the movies that Leonardo DiCaprio has been in. And then we see them showing up in the browser in HTML. So we'll make our way through all of these commands, and we're going to start with selecting information. But the first thing we need to do is get our library database up and running. So we'll start with the R, actually, the reading of data, and we'll spend a good amount of time working with it. But first, in the next video, we'll get our database up and running. Since we'll be using the same starter database, I've given you seed data, we'll have something to select from without having to understand how to create a table, which we will do, but just not yet. Okay, so that's next, and then we'll focus on select.